the thing about FIMI, you know that they're coming from outside, but you don't know whether it's operated or the source is an outside state or a local paying an outside provider. That's the thing that it's very hard to distinguish. Because if I was a local politician and I hired a company in India, you'd have these trolls coming from the outside, and that can be traced that it's coming from the outside, but who's behind it, it's hard to say. Is it coming from a private entity or a state entity?
That's an example of information laundering where you can't really trace the
Yes.
source kasi ang dami ng pinagdaanan.
Correct.
And then at the end, believable yung information kasi you don't really know it came from this
Yes,
source.
except for sometimes it's easy enough because the script is the same. So you don't really need to be an expert.
You decided to start teaching fact-checking as a kind of an antidote to disinformation, or as a response to
yes.
disinformation, 2017, kind of as a reaction then from what you observed in 2016 during the elections. It became kind of a tactic in the Philippines, but also in the US, di ba, at that time. Did it influence the outcome of elections?
In a way, it influenced the outcome because there was a lot of information that was outside the normal channels of, media and the usual trusted media. And people were starting to pick this up. You could see Facebook pages being created solely to bring out misinformation or disinformation. And it became so rampant because they were not aware that it could be done. And they still had trust in whatever they could read on the internet.
Yeah.
It just spiraled into a lot of disinformation that was being shared by ordinary citizens who could not detect that this was false information. And so part of what we needed to do was to create an awareness that this exists. Because I think that was the first level of the fight, to help people understand that not everything you read is true.
I want to talk about FIMI now. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the origins of that term, kasi it might not be familiar to everybody, and then how it's relevant now to our region.
FIMI is Foreign Information Manipulation and Interference.
Okay.
So it basically means that there are external influences or influence operators outside the country. It could be a state operation, or it could be individuals or private citizens that are not part. Basically, it's external sources of disinformation. And that it's coordinated. So it's a campaign. It's different from an influence operator who's, let's say, a blogger. So that blogger can have their own, causes of disinformation. But this one is bigger because it's a campaign among either several bloggers outside the country or really institutions that either produce inauthentic, coordinated disinformation or have influencers, individual influencers that want to manipulate the local public sphere.
Of course, disinformation has evolved, no? So these days, to what extent is disinformation FIMI?
That's hard to say to what extent, like to put a percentage or a number on it. It's very difficult.
Is it greater now than before?
With the start of social media, I think it started growing also. They saw several platforms in which they could now influence domestic politics. Now, not just in this country, but in several others. So you have those with the capital and those with the machinery and technology that can now influence domestic politics in smaller, more developing economies. And I think that's why FIMI is something that is of danger, because you don't really need that much capital. You don't even need that many people to conduct disinformation. So yes, it's been growing, I think, and it's taking on different hues depending on what issues are, I think, hot at the moment.
Kaya ako rin tinanong kung, to what extent or is it growing, etc. It's kasi we've had many conversations about disinformation for the past decade. Pero parang ngayon lang pinag-uusapan yung foreign aspect of it. Is it because the scale of it has increased or it's always been there? Kaso there are now efforts pinpointing it as foreign, or are we realizing now with more research, etc., that a lot of the disinformation from the very start was actually FIMI?
Right. I think it's because of that greater awareness. In the same way that there was very little awareness about disinformation in the early days, and now there's a lot of awareness. We're focusing now on who are the actors behind the disinformation. And that's why that information is growing among those combating disinformation. It's being talked about openly so that people, again, to create an awareness that it's beyond our shores, that the problem doesn't stop, in just the Philippines alone. And also because of, I think the European Union had started really talking about it because they saw a big influx of foreign influence operators during the Ukraine war. And so because of their own findings, we started also studying it locally, which was not really a focus of disinformation studies before, at least in Asia.
And FIMI itself was kind of coined by EU, right?
Yes. It was coined by them, but also the knowledge of how they operate was also plotted by them. It helped the local studies
To analyze
our own problems here. So I think that's why there's a greater awareness, and also why we're only talking about it now, even if probably existed well into 2016 or even earlier, much earlier. We can differentiate what is coming from local troll farms and FIMI by simply looking at where the messages are being repeated. So for example, a journalist is being attacked on Facebook. It's the same message, but the Facebook users are, they have more or less, you see their names. So it could be authentic, paid trolls. With FIMI, there's the same message, but mostly coming from, it's very hard to detect what countries they're coming from. So also, many times, at least you see on TikTok and Facebook, the names are probably, it's Chinese characters. Sometimes they come out as consonants because the original, it doesn't pick up on the platform.
But that's enough to conclude.
That's enough to conclude that, at least from a basic non-technology way of tracking, you could say that these are coming from outside.
Okay.
The thing about FIMI, you know that they're coming from outside, but you don't know whether it's operated or the source is an outside state or a local paying an outside provider. That's the thing that it's very hard to distinguish. Because if I was a local politician and I hired a company in India, you'd have, these trolls coming up from the outside, and that can be traced that it's coming from the outside. But who's behind it? It's hard to say. That's where I think you will really need a collaboration with the platforms to trace the source. Is it coming from a private entity or a state entity? That's where you need the technology that's beyond a normal fact checker like myself.
That's an example of information laundering where you can't really trace the source kasi ang dami ng pinagdaanan.
Correct.
And then at the end, parang may believable yung information kasi you don't really know it came from this source.
Except for sometimes it's easy enough because the script is the same, right? Then at least in that sense, you don't really need to be an expert.
Are we gaining ground in terms of the truth? Sabi niyo, 90% awareness, no? But what needs to happen with this awareness?
Well, I think what should be happening is if you are going to use the same technology to fight disinformation, then it is for the positive, like to what we call pre-bunking, like to give out the correct information or to have a rapid response when you are being attacked by disinformation. And basically, that's using the same technology that disinformers use, but to a positive and in a good way. It's really a matter of who is using it and for what purpose. I think that those who want to stay clean in the political sphere, but at the same time not be naive, then use it for in the proper way.